I'm gonna tell you something that blows your fucking minds. Something that you have never heard before. Something that is absolutely unconscionable to so much of the internet. It isn't actually that. I think this is just what's been on all of our minds, and yet none of us have been able to admit it. I have no idea when this video is going to be released or if I'm even going to release it. I can already feel like this is a topic that is so weighty that I'm probably just going to leave it on my phone for fucking months until I get to it. Till I have the balls to say these things. But I'm going to say them right now, regardless of whether or not this comes out. The left does not believe in rehabilitation. And I am a key witness to this point. As in, the left has not rehabilitated me. When I detransitioned and gave all of my reasons as to why I detransitioned, I was panned all across the internet, not just in my comments section, but on Reddit, on 4chan. There were leftist trans people who felt triggered by the fact that I could be one of the very few who questioned their gender, maybe wanted to pretend to be a girl on the internet at some point, and then realized they were wrong. I realized I was wrong. In fact, I knew I was wrong before I even got on HRT. They didn't seem to be able to accept the narrative that I put forth, that I got on HRT knowing full well that I was not a woman and that I did not want to be one, but rather I got on it as an opportunistic opportunity to be someone that would be accepted in the groups that I was in, and that might have a better chance at taking advantage of certain things that the trans community, as well as women, have afforded to them. I thought I could be a forever NEET if I just found some lonely incel with a lot of money who was into that kind of stuff. But what ended up happening to me was something I should have been able to predict from all of the women who have failed to be gold diggers and who've talked about their experience. Those facts were unbeknownst to me, but I ended up experiencing the exact same thing as them, which was me getting into that situation with a guy that I, for the most part, was not attracted to, did not want to be with. I had been transitioning. I had all these physical changes and modifications in my body, which have now been largely reversed. I was putting all this effort into my appearance, constantly obsessing over the way that I'd appear. And then I got into that situation where I'd force myself to do all of this kind of hyper submissive nonsense, basically at the whims of whatever the other person who had money wanted. And I found myself to be miserable, being that gold digger that centered all of the things about my physical appearance around what that guy wanted. And, like, this was such a bad thing that I even kept the narrative consistent with all of my friends. I would talk to my friends as though these narratives were just true. Like, I would lie through my teeth to them. I would lie so often about what was going on with me, about what was actually true. And they just believed it. Like, I was so convincing with the transgender narrative that they bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And I was able to keep up that act of pretending to be an entirely different person to everybody. Like, by keeping the narrative consistent with all of my friends, entirely isolating myself from basically everyone by being a habitual liar, I manufactured a situation where I could come off convincing to my partner at the time simply because I had rehearsed all the consistencies of this narrative so many times over that they just believed in all of it. They bought into all of it because I never contradicted myself. Or if I did, I would do it in such a confident and brazen way that they'd simply believe. I was that shameless about it. And it made me miserable. It isolated me from fucking everyone. And this was all due to a situation where my disability payments were not going to me. I had a payee in the form of my father. So it was not my money, essentially. The government deemed me unable to take care of it. In an incredibly shitty home situation that I could not get out of. And I thought the only way I could get out of this, and the only way I also couldn't work, because I am literally disabled due to PTSD and autism, I cannot work. I thought the only way to get out of it was to find some wealthy guy who also happened to be ugly and renege on basically just everything I knew about myself. I was someone who was not transgender, and I found out I don't enjoy being transgender because I'm not transgender. Wow, big whoop. What an amazing conclusion to come to, right? But to all these leftists, to all these trans people in my DMs, on my comments, on 4chan, to them I am transgender. Just because I took a couple of drugs that change my hormones for a period of time, that makes me transgender forever, in spite of the mental havoc that wrought on me, in spite of the fact that it destroyed my mental health, that I was lying through my teeth every second. These people somehow cannot comprehend, they cannot handle the notion that someone like me, someone so conniving, someone so manipulative, someone so Machiavellian as to do that, could possibly exist. They cannot handle this. And so, when I come out as someone who detransitioned and is happier because I detransitioned, I'm not rehabilitated in their view. These leftists believe that literally everyone who has the thought to transition, who even considers transitioning in any capacity, no matter what the reason is, that they are by default, that they are de facto transgender, no matter what the circumstances, no matter what they say, no matter what their experience is. It's insane. Like, do you have any idea how insane of a position this is to have? It's fucking insane. But they believe this anyway. They believe this anyway because they are so insecure in their own conception of themselves, in the very worldview that they have that influences them to take certain actions in this world. They are so insecure in those things that they refuse to acknowledge the existence of anything to the contrary. That everything must be this perfect, exact representation of what their worldview is, and anything that contradicts that, any exception to the rule, any rarity from the outside, no, No, it doesn't exist. No, it must be some aberration. It must be some made up nonsense. It must be somebody repressing, right? That's gotta be what it is. And I've experienced so much harassment from these people. So much evil from these radical individuals that have tried to tell me that they know better than me who I am. When I have poured my heart out about these mistakes that I've made, about these wrongs that I've done, they've insisted to me, no, you actually haven't done those bad things in lying to all those different people. No, actually, you're just an egg. That this egg meme somehow applies to me. Any trait of gender nonconformity, such as fucking having long hair to these people, is a sign that you're transgender. Do you understand how deranged you sound? Do you understand how mentally unstable you sound? It's insane. And I'm not saying that this is the whole community, because there's a lot of trans people who watch my videos. There's a lot of trans people who DM me lewd images who I've also had to tell to stop now because I'm in a committed relationship with someone who also happens to be transgender. Most of my friends are transgender. So it's not even like this is like this huge thing that that encompasses the whole community. No, it doesn't encompass the whole community. But there is a radical faction of this community that is after me, that is saying all these things about me and trying to conspire against me. And I just I just want them to leave me alone. Like, you claim that you're leftists. You claim that you're left leaning. And yet you do all of this stuff that is literally punitive in nature. You take someone that lied, that did things that were objectively wrong, and you say, no, those things couldn't have actually been wrong. Actually, I'm going to justify it in this strange roundabout way and say that what they're doing now is actually wrong. And now I'm going to arbitrarily decide that I know these essential components to their identity better than they do, without even knowing the person after just watching like one fucking video. Can I just be rehabilitated? Like, if I go over what my beliefs are, they're literally in lockstep with these radical leftists. I support gender transition for minors that meet the diagnostic criteria for gender dysphoria, which is, of course, something that takes a long process to get diagnosed with, but I think that's reasonable if you're a minor. If you're an adult, that being over the age of 18, I think you should be allowed to get hormone treatment simply by paying money at a store, which is much more radical than what many other people believe. I even think that for, I don't advocate for this. I don't think it should be encouraged, but if minors want to do DIY HRT on their own without a doctor's consent, I mean, I took all kinds of drugs when I was that age without a doctor's consent, and definitely against medical advice, and I turned out fine. So if they want to do that, and if they feel pretty sure about themselves, as many now trans adults who have grown out of that and made those decisions also still feel sure about themselves, then go right ahead. I mean, I can't stop you. It's your body, it's your liberty. But I won't encourage it, I won't endorse it. But I have that kind of lukewarm, neutral stance, even on something as radical as that. And it's just like, you want me to go down the list? I am generally for self-ID. If you self-identify as a woman, I will try my damnedest to see you as a woman, to the point where, like, I'm attempting to change my perceptions about these things. I'm trying to modify the exact way in which I view the world in order to view you as someone in that category, just through self-ID. That's a mental leap that I'm willing to take to attempt to uh, conform to, simply because I have this belief in trans rights. I believe that what I just expressed should extend to the legal system, so you should be able to change your documents very, very easily. Uh, Countries like Argentina, which have implemented that policy, have found success in doing so. There haven't been any problems associated with it. You can go down the list. I have extremely progressive issues or positions on trans issues. And yet the trans community won't accept me, even though I advocate for these things. I make many videos advocating for these things. They won't accept me just because I detransitioned. Just because I have a disproportionate attraction to trans women that does not culminate in disrespectful behavior, mind you. I do not fetishize certain genital parts. I do not treat trans women in this problematic way. I simply have a preference, and it's a preference that has served me very well in dating. Just because of these things, I am maligned by this community. I am punished by this community. I am ostracized by this community. And I just have to ask, why do you do this to someone who agitates on your behalf, advocates on your behalf, and consistently believes in positions that would benefit the people of your category, of your ilk? Answer me that. Because from where I'm standing, from my position, it seems as though when the genocide comes, you're not going to be looking for people who have my kind of perspective to fight on your behalf. You need all the help you can get. And when I harbor a sincere belief in trans rights that I have continued to hold in spite of the onslaught of criticism and harassment I've gotten from you people, you ought to be accepting me as an ally, but you don't. You post all of this harassment all over the internet over bare bones psychoanalysis that is not based in reality, but based in the most insane conjecture that you could possibly conjure up. Your criticisms are ideological in nature. They are not objective. They're not reasonable. Anyone else who's been put through what I've been put through would have become right-wing by now. They would have been advocating for the very same genocidal rhetoric that you hear all over the internet. But I don't do that. I don't do that because I believe in objectivity, because my beliefs are not derived from some emotional basis the way that so many people's beliefs are. My beliefs are derived from empiricism, and empiricism informs the moral views that I ultimately hold. But you don't want someone like that. You would rather push me all the way to the furthest right position that you can possibly push me to through ostracization, simply because of these few traits that you take issue with, that you'd like for me to be stamped out of existence, or to advocate for your non-existence. That's the reality that you'd like me to exist in. Because you don't believe in rehabilitation. You don't even believe in allying with people who even slightly disagree with you. And it's going to be your downfall. It is going to be the reason why you have those barcodes on your arms, exactly like how my ancestors had barcodes on their arms. That's the world you want to live in.